I'm a man who believed that I died 20 years ago, and I live like a man who is dead already. I have no fear whatsoever of anybody or anything.
Gary Webb. I am an investigative journalist, and in 1996 I wrote a series of stories entitled Dark Alliance, which was about CIA involvement in drug trafficking.
I knew a man who once said death smiles at us all. All a man can do is smile back.
We've both been skull and bone, the secret society.
It's so secret we can't talk about it.
What does that mean for America? The conspiracy theorists are going to go
I'm
wild.
sure they are. I don't know. I haven't seen the rest.
Number 322.
I have duty to report this afternoon that my friend and colleague, Tim Russell, collapsed and died early this afternoon.
I may die in this cell tonight or in the arena tomorrow. I am a slave. What possible difference can I make?
And no official of my administration, whether his rank is high or low, civilian or military, should interpret my words here tonight as an excuse to censor the news, to stifle dissent, to cover up our mistakes, or to withhold from the press and the public the facts they deserve to know.
Welcome back, Already Dead Heads, to your favorite weekly live call-in conspiracy show, Already Dead, with Jose Galison and Austin Picard, these two beautiful bastards. It is Taco Tuesday, and boy, Taco Tuesday is one of those things that you're like, man, what's going on here? I'm like, I don't want this, but then once you get the taco, you're like, there is a party that's like, I'm glad we got the taco. I mean, this is better than the alternative. So we're full on Taco Tuesday. We are not devolving into nuclear war. We have plenty to talk about on that and more. Austin, were you on the edge of your seat this morning? I'm not gonna lie, I was a little bit in one of those kind of spiral where, like, I know it was, oh, Trump just says hyperbolic stuff. You're like, motherfucker. He's talking to, I don't know how much more clear you could say I might drop nukes without saying I might drop nukes. Now, to be clear, I don't think he was ever going to drop nukes. I think he was probably just going to do more war crimes, a little bit more overt war crimes than have already been happening. But still, it was extremely concerning. And I'm by no means someone to really get too uppity about mean words or I don't know. I've been kind of irritated with some of the commentary I've seen on these lines from some right wing of like, ooh, this is a pussification of the right wing, and it's like, what the fuck is wrong with you people? Like, I don't know. What is it to, I don't know. This is the way people define being a pussy is like, what, you're not cool with cheering on other men doing violence? It's just a very weird way to look at the world. But 100%. I don't know. I guess us schizzos over here are fighting against the death cult, our eternal struggle. So, Austin, how are you handling this week? Handling today, particularly?
Yeah, honestly, I was a little bit just wondering which direction this would go in terms of the actual consequences of the aggressive and kind of escalating language and posturing, as far as is this almost an example of Trump's brand and his version of the hyper aggressive art of the deal in a way, right? Which I hate to oversimplify it in that context, but you get the point that I'm making, which is obviously that it seems like you never know how Trump, obviously he's never really acting in good faith with any of the negotiations that he participates in. And I think his administration is very much following suit. And that's just sort of a part of the permanent establishment and the way they operate. But this is definitely pushing the concept of allowable opinion in a much more again, the language in itself was a little bit like just unique and extraordinary to witness in real time, because it was legitimately posturing up in a way in which you could imagine a major escalation to the point of actually dropping a nuke, or at least major a targeting of civilian infrastructure with large bombs, whatever the case may be, right? But the point is, and I saw someone actually post. I thought it was hilarious. What they essentially said in the post was those Epstein files were so bad they started World War III and faked another moon mission. And I just thought it was perfect, because it does kind of capture just almost the essence of the current moment, and the overall sentiment. The public sentiment is almost as if, although I will say we should caution ourselves in a way just to reflect on potentially the reality of us being a little bit more insulated than we imagine, right? And potentially, just as far as out of touch with the average person's perspective politically, and especially how they interpret this conflict, and how they will.
Unfortunately,
fall.
I think you're correct there. Yeah.
Yeah, and it's something that it definitely is unfortunate, and is a little bit. I guess it sort of makes me it harms my overall confidence in terms of what I view the ultimate fallout and result of the way in which the escalation of the current conflict is heading. But in terms of just the chronological order of the timeline of events regarding the Iran war conflict, and this blustering language, the including
real quick, I did want to comment before we get into the specific timeline. You are correct. I think with this whole thing, the timeline kind of is part of the, like, it's kind of hard to even keep track of what's done when and where. Like, I had someone today that actually, I posted something and they're like, what side are you on, or something. And I was just thinking about it. I was kind of astounded because somebody follows me. We're mutuals. Not something like I knew too well. It's just kind of like, I was almost like, yeah, the idea that these people are insulated to understand it. But I was just kind of thinking about it, and I was like, I can totally get it, especially if you're someone who doesn't pay attention to the minutia like we do. If you are only kind of popping in with, I don't know, news headlines, or seeing just kind of, I don't know, waiting rooms, seeing the TV or whatever, just kind of like how normal people interact with the news. You see little tidbits of the war. Like, they can't even comprehend the idea that, like, Iran would not be the aggressor whatsoever. And they've seen to be fair, there's been, like, planes gone down. There's been people dying. And so these conflicts just kind of become this ambiguous thing to them. And they think, oh, well, I'm sure someone fired this side. So it's always in their head. They might kind of muck up, like, maybe it's debatable who started what. But here we are, and they've clearly done this. And it's like, I don't know, if you've been paying attention to the minutia of this, it's very clear that we did all this. And you include the nuclear component as well, and this gives a vague thing that people can go, yeah, okay. Or like, yeah, I don't want them to have nukes. And, people don't pay attention to all the very specific little details, like the fact that we blew up negotiations in the absolute most literal sense of the word, like twice. And, like, we attacked them. They've been, and even throughout this conflict, they have been defensive, while I still do not technically advocate for the actions they've done in, like, hurting people. In certain circumstances, incredibly obviously defensive, but it's been for their part. And even when it comes to, like, war crime stuff, when it comes to infrastructure stuff, they only started recently. The part of the thing of why we've gone to this point is Israel started bombing infrastructure in Iran. And then Iran goes, okay, we'll do the same thing, bet. And then that's when, like, that's when we got all pissy, being like, you can't be doing that to Qatar or whatever. And then now we're at the point where we're kind of teasing the idea that we may do infrastructure damage, even though we already have. We blew up that bridge, but it's even then, like, another level. But I'm just saying, like, the idea of, like, if you're someone who only pays attention to, like, highlights, and you're from the outside looking in, and you've been told by every newscaster for decades that this is like this regime of terror that's been going for decades, and they killed 45,000 people or whatever, you're like, it kind of ambiguously becomes like, well, even if you are like, maybe it's dubious, maybe it doesn't seem so great how this started, like, okay, this is a regime that needs to be stopped, and here we are, and yada, yada, yada. But, like, I think there's something to that. They've done such a good job at, like, kind of mucking up and obfuscating everything, not really addressing certain things to where it just becomes so murky in like the normie's mind.
Yeah, 100%. And to that point, I'll never forget just recently, I mean, within the past few months, I went to the barber shop and basically was just having a casual conversation with the guy that was just, doing my cut. And basically he goes into, how he was proud of Trump. This is what he loves about Trump, is the fact that he's shoving his boot up Iran's ass. And this is someone who's not at all plugged in politically. This is in Long Beach, right? And just essentially imagining
Toby,
he's a few years older than me, probably, and yeah, but still, it's not sort of the demographic you would imagine having that perspective. And so it's a little strange for me, just because I was trying to obviously figure out how to deal with this delicately in the moment. You know what I mean? But at the same time, it's a direct reflection on that exact sort of profile that you were illustrating just a moment ago, as far as the people who aren't quite as plugged into, just the average, not even the surface level in a real way, as far as like political agendas playing out, and even just, how are they actually digesting the news? Typically, it's through this TikTok kind of limited, in a way, attention span and short clips that drive some sort of ideological point home that will land them on a specific side of either supporting the conflict or ideologically opposing it. But at the end of the day, they're only adopting ideas that are essentially being parroted, and in no real sense are they actually, just acknowledging and identifying the root cause of any of this, or especially not scaling back the historical reference points and how this kind of all at least came to fruition, right? And gathering the most crucial, obviously, historical evidence that can point to the way in which this was a designed escalation. And that's the ultimate problem that I'm finding, is that, first of all, we've been discussing kind of this heightened religious propaganda being attached to the justification of the conflict, especially on behalf of the current administration, the right-wing God King, right? He needs to essentially lean into this as heavily as possible, especially considering at least all of the reports of the polling that's being conducted at the moment, which who knows how much of that is credible. But the point being is that it doesn't seem as if he's polling very well, considering all of the just criticism, and rightfully so, that he's basically enduring at the current moment due to his policies and the agendas that he's pursuing. But the point I'm trying to make is that you see, like, just as far as, yes, the deliberate targeting of civilian infrastructure, which is blatant war crimes, and it's being justified by these prominent figures and political puppets, which they all are, including Trump and Netanyahu, in my opinion. But you still have this notion of these.
What are you, already dead? Your numbers are way down. Fake news.
A little bit, my friend.
By the way, for those who aren't aware, that was an interaction. The New York Times, I believe, asked him about that. We have gone to this point to where we are now defending in corporate media to where, because that's it. There's been so many times in this Trump administration, someone dared to ask him or to present the truth to him in such a way, and then he just go, "Oh, you're fake news," which we used to giggle about that the last time around because they were god awful, and they still kind of are. But I mean, with the way they've cucked the press corps, they're the only ones willing to say anything at all.
100%. And he's currently, Trump himself, threatening to jail journalists who basically received that leak about the U.S. pilot who was downed in Iran, the Easter miracle that Trump accomplished, which is the most laughable narrative that formed around that story. But just before we get to that point, I just wanted to briefly mention the fact of the religious propaganda that they're attaching deliberately to this agenda and this overall conflict. And it's being very much exploited and leveraged against us, as always. But you see, just as the threatening language began to escalate, right, as far as from the current administration, you witness and this is supposedly while they're in the midst of these good faith negotiations with Iranian diplomats, as we talked about privately. And then obviously you have all the most prominent religious leaders gathering for their participation in what I've deemed the White House Easter production, which they even went so far as to provide God's glowing endorsement for the complete and total annihilation of the radical Islamic Iranian terrorist regime. Like, this is the language that they're using. People of prominence like Franklin Graham are basically showing up at the White House and providing this glowing endorsement, which obviously his father, Billy Graham, very much influential. And I think, my parents even specifically very much kind of idolized him, right? Placed that individual on a pedestal of Billy Graham. And yes, that really is, like you said.
We got to play this. We got to play this real quick. This is just like, I don't know. This is a perfect little snapshot of the moment that we're living in right here.
Dorian, I don't think it gets much more hostile than Iran. They're capable fighters. They're very tough people. And there are others like that. You don't mind when the enemy is weak, but that enemy is strong. Not so strong like they were about a month ago. I can tell you, in fact, right now, they're not too strong at all, in my opinion, but we're soon going to find out, aren't we?
All right. Just for the audio listeners, just to fill you in that aren't aware, this was him on the, was it like the back porch of the White House or whatever, where they sometimes for certain events will do like, little speeches or whatever. So he's speaking out of the White House, and he has next to him the Easter Bunny, and it just looks like this, like almost like a Donnie Darko type vibe or something, where he's talking about destroying Iran, and there's just like dead-eyed Easter Bunny pagan entities standing next to him. Which, it is funny if you want to take it to religion. It's like Easter is totally just a co-opted pagan holiday,
yeah,
which
it really is.
Which is like exactly that's where all the yeah.
I said exactly that.
Anyways,
to my wife, legitimately, it's hilarious. But the fact is, he leans so heavily into this on Easter, right? With that production that I mentioned, that he basically makes a statement where he says he confirmed that God supports the war against Iran because God wants to see people taken care of. He says, quote, "God is good and God wants to see people taken care of." Which is just like that. That language is definitely kind of reinforcing what we've been discussing for the past couple of weeks and referencing in many of these public statements that they're making as far as these prominent figures in the administration. And he says on Palm Sunday, Jesus entered Jerusalem as crowds welcomed him with praise, honoring him as king. They call me king now. Can you believe it? This is what Trump was saying. And then you have the White House spiritual advisor. You've seen this woman, right? She's a real
where she speaks in tongues and she's a little bomb thing or whatever. There's another Iranian propaganda video. Did you see that one? It was actually kind of a banger. I have that saved for like an already dead or something.
The XF one?
No. I already played that. You're talking about your head's still in Lego World. No, someone made like
the Batman one? Is that the one you're talking about?
No, they made like an edit, like almost like a Twitter edit, but like it was like, if anything, it was like an AI one. Like they had cuts where they had like Ted Cruz like as a chick with boobs and a bikini and as a cheerleader on an aircraft carrier. And then they have as like the background track / like speaking is what you're talking about. Her doing the and then we bomb and then we I forget what she strike. He strikes. So I don't remember what it is she says, but like using religious language, almost like I wish I could remember exactly what word she used, but it sounds like very religious, like strike or smite or something like that. Right. In the way she says it, like she says it in religious laden terms. Essentially, what should happen to the enemies of God? Essentially.
Mm-hmm. Which, by the way,
so that's the edit they made. So yeah,
that's so funny, dude. Yeah, you might. If you already played it, you don't have to. But
I haven't played it yet. I can find it. We can play it for like an outro or something if you want.
That would be.
It'd be weird to play it now, but we can play it for an outro.
Sounds good. Because there's
if Jacob doesn't show up, it'll be the intermission.
Right. There was basically this propaganda video that the Iranian regime state sponsored in a way in regard to, it was like a play off of the old school Batman comic book, and it was called Epstein Man. and it's so funny. It's Trump and Netanyahu, and the bat signal in the sky is Epstein Man, and Trump's obviously Batman, and it's very comical. But there was basically a counter propaganda piece created by the CIA, their own version, the CIA slop propaganda, where they're attempting to up their game, it seems. And that in itself was an edit, which even referenced the downed pilot that was allegedly rescued. And it goes hard. We'll have to play that in a moment, because at least maybe to segue.
while we're still on religion,
that pilot. Yeah.
While we're still in religious vibes, we should probably play the Hegseth thing. I mean, we're at a perfect little segue to that. You're talking about this religious laden stuff. I couldn't believe this. This is astounding. I mean, we've kind of, I think, needled at it a little bit, but over the weekend we had this great big rescue mission, and we're all supposed to suck a military member's dick or something now. Which, by the way, hey, what's up? Used to be, at least maybe just an over the pants hand job or something. I'll accept that.
Yeah.
Being silly, obviously. I'm being very sarcastic. I'm kind of grossed out by the whole vibe, but yeah, everyone's all like, greatest thing ever, super cool, kind of forgetting about that, like, yo, motherfucker, that's, you got here in the first place, and you guys are acting to have a complete air superiority. This is like, I don't know, it's just astounding that people are like calling for more war when it's like, because planes are getting shot down over other countries' literal territory. I'm like, what do you, I don't know, like, I mean, I kind of sort of feel bad since I was kind of mixed up in that in the past, I guess, being part of the military, so I could kind of sympathize. It's kind of weirdly close to home, seeing like flight crew and then even some like actual, like the 135s we talked about in the past that I used to work on. So it's a little bit weird. At the same time, it's kind of like, you know, well, you're literally over their airspace. I don't know what to tell you. But anyways, it's okay. They had the little rescue mission that we're supposed to, you know, be the greatest thing ever. Keep in mind that, I mean, if you want to be cynical, we have, you know, always kind of plug this into the paradigm of this new weekend war format that we have for wars. So maybe that plays in here. Also, central casting was mentioned in Trump's little speech like 20 fucking times or something over the weekend. It was weird. And we have this big kind of cockamamie tale about the one, was it an F-35, I think, that went down, and they recovered it. It was 2 people in there, which that'll be a key point in a second. They parachuted over. They were like 100 miles away or something from somewhere. They were also near like Isfahan, where all the nuclear materials is at and stuff. But anyways, all that aside, I just want to show you guys real quick, especially we're on kind of the religious angle of all of this, the way that Hegseth delivered this. I know it's just kind of just a little bit disconcerting. I mean, I don't know, maybe this is really how it went down, but even to lay it on so hard is just weird to me. I don't like it. And I'm not even particularly religious. So let's watch this.
1 downed airman evaded capture for more than a day, scaling rugged ridges while hunted by the enemy. When he was finally able to activate his emergency transponder, his first message was simple, and it was powerful. He sent a message: God is good.
Sure.
In that moment of isolation and danger, his faith and fighting spirit shone through. You see, shot down on a Friday, Good Friday, hidden in a cave, a crevice, all of Saturday, and rescued on Sunday. Flown out of Iran as the sun was rising on Easter Sunday. A pilot reborn, all home and accounted for, a nation rejoicing. God is good.
I mean, sure, maybe, I guess. I can't prove you're wrong.
Yeah, that's allegedly. So I pulled the
doubt.
article. Right, exactly. And that's my first reaction to it instantly was that this is a manufactured narrative. This is cartoonish and kind of a storybook fairy tale in a way, in order to continue to reinforce exactly what we've been just illustrating in a certain sense, as far as the religious aspect of this conflict. And God is good being the F-15's pilot, a 3-worded message apparently that put U.S. rescue on edge in Iran. It's the most ridiculous story. I pulled up like a version of the published article, and it's very interesting because it essentially claims that was the message that triggered the alarm bells among American officials who feared it could be a coded signal indicating the pilot had been captured or was under duress. And this was an F-15E Strike Eagle, apparently, which was shot down over southwestern Iran during escalating tensions. While one crew member was rescued within hours, the second, a senior officer, remained stranded for nearly 2 days in hostile terrain, evading Iranian forces. During that time, the stranded airman managed to establish intermittent communication with U.S. forces. However, his radio transmission, "God is good," raised suspicions. According to reports, U.S. intelligence feared the message might have been forced or manipulated by Iranian forces as to bait or lure rescuers into an ambush. So it led to a critical delay in launching the full-scale rescue operation. Officials debated whether the pilot was genuinely safe or being used in a trap, highlighting the risks of conducting missions in enemy territory where misinformation and deception are common tactics. So that I found obviously to be worthwhile and just mentioning briefly, but you kind of pair that with, hold on, give me 1 second, because it looks like there were these claims basically that were made, right? As far as you have members of the IRGC, this prominent figure in the military in Iran comes out and he makes a public statement. And I have the allegedly is the English translation verbatim of the statement that he made, which is worthwhile and playing just really quickly. But basically, you have Iran claiming that during the recent rescue operation, the U.S. military actually destroyed two of its own transport planes and helicopters, which they allege resulted in significant losses, including the death of multiple soldiers. I think it was at least 2 soldiers they're claiming were U.S. soldiers who were actually killed by American bombs. Basically is what they're claiming. So if that, hey, anything can happen, right? And especially with just confusion and the misinformation and deception that they even suggested a moment ago, it's worthwhile and at least considering. But yeah, the actual message and statement, which the final thing that I did want to briefly mention what Paula White was saying at the White House. She basically says that Trump's Jesus Christ. So the fact that they didn't know that this was a good faith rescue mission message, then communicate basically to the U.S., then obviously they're not as in tune with God as you would imagine. No, it's just like the fact that she says that President Trump is essentially rose like Jesus. She says defeated death and will defeat all of his enemies. And she continued on with more ridiculous messaging and language, but still, the fact is, and I think it was what's his name, the Bobby Hill profile picture on Twitter. We've mentioned him a couple times.
Lotus or whatever. Yeah. I forget what it is.
He tagged us in one of the initial reports of this ghost murmur CIA tool that apparently was used for the very first time.
No Lotus channel _ Ocho for those want to follow. Sorry, my bad. Go ahead.
Right. No, you're good. But yeah, the fact that they reported that this is obviously breaking news. The CIA used this new tool known as the ghost murmur to locate the downed U.S. airmen in Iran. It's apparently the first real-world use, according to the New York Post, and it can apparently detect a human heartbeat from miles away using AI and advanced sensors. And in the article, it says, quote, if your heart is beating, we will find you. And I just thought that was kind of just dystopian messaging in a way. And there's basically more information attached to what this ghost murmur tool is. And they're claiming it's long-range quantum magnetometry, likely magnometry.
Sounds made up.
Apparently. Yeah, it really does.
Magnetometry, maybe?
That's what they claim is the core tech in the CIA's new ghost murmur tool. And it uses advanced
Sounds like something in a Marvel movie.
It really does.
Made up goofy science, but go ahead.
It honestly does, but it allegedly uses these advanced sensors that are built around microscopic defects in synthetic diamonds to pick up the ultra weak electromagnetic signals from a human heartbeat from miles away, up to 40 in this case. And so, yeah, AI then filters background noise to isolate the signature in low clutter areas like remote deserts. But anyway, definitely seems as if this is legitimately out of science fiction in a way. But if you tie that in, and by the way, like a couple weeks ago, I read a report on the original Operation Rising Lion, I think was the Israeli operation to assassinate all the Iranian leadership. And it's honestly very interesting. And when I looked into, there were a couple of reports that were fascinating in regard to how Israel allegedly hacked into Tehran's traffic cameras using AI to plan Khomeini's assassination. And so they hacked into traffic cameras, and they were using this AI operating software system or something, and to map out the supreme leader Khomeini's movements just before his assassination. And this led to 30 missiles used in a precision strike. But yeah, they're surveilling the daily life of the Iranian figures in the higher levels of leadership, at least senior Iranian figures, in preparation for Operation Rising Lion. And yeah, they mapped out an entire life pattern for Ayatollah Khomeini and his security personnel, including travel routes, hours of activity, and the identities of the senior figures who were usually with the late Iranian leader who was killed in an airstrike, obviously. But anyway, I thought that report just kind of dovetailed perfectly with what we were just mentioning as far as this ghost murmur tool that they just utilize, because obviously AI is the new, almost kind of it's becoming in a way, the new valuable and viable tool in the concept of modern warfare, right? And I really do think that they will consistently utilize these AI software systems in the field of battle and for operational purposes, no matter how effective they truly are or efficient, especially. I don't think that's really ultimately the goal, is to be efficient and effective. I think they're just more so worried about the overall cost and the potential toll of you know, the physical assets needed to be in place in order to effectively achieve the same outcome. You know, I feel like that's at least a part of it, not to say that's any sort of justification whatsoever. But yeah,
I'd say have heart though, Austin. While they're able to do all this doodad stuff, which I'll be honest, I'm very skeptical about a lot of it. I think maybe a lot of it's maybe made up to be a bigger deal than it is, or sometimes even just straight up bullshit. Especially with Trump has a habit of making up nonsense. Now, to be fair, I think this did come from the CIA with like the murmur thing and stuff. But I mean, remember the discombobulator? But also at the same time, you know, have a little heart. I mean, on the flip side, as they're talking about this, they can't even figure out who the fuck is leaking stuff to the press. Trump apparently has gone to the point where he's willing to literally threaten the First Amendment on the grounds of national security to try to get people to give up their source. Let's watch a little bit of this. Then I got a little bit of a spoiler. The hunt has been concluded. We found out who did it, but let's watch.
As you probably know, we didn't talk about the first one for an hour. Then somebody leaked something, which we'll hopefully find that leaker. We're looking very hard to find that leaker. And talked about there's somebody missing. They basically said that we have one and there's somebody missing. Well, they didn't know there was somebody missing until this leaker gave the information. So whoever it was, we think we'll be able to find it out, because we're going to go to the media company that released it, and we're going to say, national security, give it up or go to jail. And we know who, and you know who we're talking about. There's some things you can't do, because when they did that, all of a sudden, the entire country of Iran knew that there was a pilot that was somewhere on their land that was fighting for his.
All right, that's probably enough of that clip. I think we got the main idea. And he kind of continues. It's another whole minute of that, but it's the same idea. He just continually loops around of like, you can't be doing that. We're going to get him. He's going to give up his source, national security, yada, yada, yada. Well, apparently the first report on the missing second pilot were Amit Segal and Ariel Kahana. Both of these are Israeli reporters.
Yeah.
And they are like close to Netanyahu in the sense to kind of to put it in perspective for you, for those who pay attention to the ins and out of reporting in the United States. Say like Axios, and particularly more specifically Barak Ravid. Think about how they behave in relation to power. These guys are kind of the same deal. Where like you probably shouldn't take everything they say as truth, but you should take it as like they do have the inside scoop from people. They may be lying to you because they have the inside scoop and that they're politically connected in that sense, but they are basically the Barak Ravids of Israel. So yeah, I think that's going to get memory hold. I have a strong feeling this little thing is going to get memory hold real quick.
No doubt. I think,
but either way, it's still a wild thing, with the whole nuke thing and stuff, or the lot of people thinking perhaps, and this. We've just gone to like if you really tally up all the crazy stuff we've done in the past like year or so that has become kind of broken paradigm, it's just kind of astounding. Like this is stuff that like, when he was campaigning on, he was kind of flirting with the idea of like pardoning Assange and shit like this, and yet here he is talking about jailing the press. So for reporting on things, which I guess some people might say, oh, you can't be doing that, but no, the fuck you can. Honestly, eat a dick. Like. Honestly, seriously, like if you're out there doing crazy, belligerent, you're murdering people and you're upset that I'm screwing up your scheme. Oh no, some American members might die. Well, then maybe you shouldn't be getting them in murder campaigns.
Yeah. Exactly.
But anyway, sorry, go ahead.
No, you're good. I agree. But I did think that one of the most interesting aspects of this sort of fictional narrative that was cropping up around this specific case and story regarding the rescued airmen, there was a report that claimed the Iranian foreign minister claims and says that U.S. pilot rescue mission may have actually been a cover to steal enriched uranium, which I did think was kind of laughable at face value, because the implication is that the Iranians were in possession of enriched uranium in the first place, which further reinforces the false narrative of Iran has nukes and nuclear capabilities and things of that nature, which I do think is obviously easily dismissible, on the surface in a way, but you see how this was all paired as the Easter miracle was basically what it was dubbed. And Trump and these various U.S. officials were being criticized for calling the rescue of the airmen as the Easter miracle. They basically actually used that specific term and language to describe it. And so again, this is religious language used to obviously justify the war. And so you had Marjorie Taylor Greene came out in opposition of that specifically in context, and certain Muslim advocacy groups as well were up in arms and upset about the religious language attached to it. And obviously in his statement that he made, I think it was on Easter, right, where he demands Iran open the fucking strait or live in hell. And this was on Truth Social that he posted that on Easter Sunday. And he goes on to say
real quick, I'll be real with you. That one right there, I know a lot of people were freaking out about it, and I wasn't it or anything, but I was kind of blown away that a lot of people like this is just compared to how, because he's been doing this throughout this entire Iran war, progressively belligerent threats over and over again. Kind of, that one was just a little bit stronger. It was this last one today that I was really like, oh fuck, okay. But the Easter one, I was like, that just sounds like more gay luster coming from him. You ain't gonna do shit, and he didn't do shit, which I'm glad he didn't do shit. But to be clear, anyways, back to you.
For sure. But yeah, to actually dub Tuesday as the power plant day and bridge day and all wrapped up in one in Iran, there will be nothing like it. He says, "Open the fucking strait, you crazy bastards, or you'll be living in hell. Just watch. Praise be to Allah." This is on Easter Sunday. And I even saw Tucker Carlson actually address that directly and kind of shame him for, which obviously you already know my feelings in regard to Tucker as a compromised asset, but controlled opposition in my mind. But still, the point being is I agree with him occasionally, right? And I agree with certain, anyone if they make some sort of rational, logical point in a context worthwhile, then that doesn't mean the source itself is worthwhile. But obviously, I did agree with the fact that for a sitting president to, just blatantly and overtly attack an entire religion in a way on Easter Sunday. I mean, God, what an example, right? And the fact of the matter is, if you can morally justify that sort of behavior, you've been either entirely conditioned, right, to embrace this again, the concept of allowable opinion being significantly pushed into a dystopian direction, or you have no ethical foundation to rely upon. So what sort of principles can you actually exercise in a real sense to provide yourself with that defense mechanism in order to evade those very traps that are well designed for that purpose of ideological subversion? But I think that knowing that obviously the chronological order of these statements I did find fascinating. And again, we have Trump even coming out and claiming that Iranians are begging him to bomb them, right? Please keep bombing, do it. And these are people that are living where the bombs are exploding, says Trump.
Did you see the BB? Sorry, I don't know if we're about to get to. I think we might have a little bit of delay today. I'm sorry if my internet's have an issue, but did you see the BBC quote that they had to? Well, they didn't even actually retract it, but they just kind of subtly changed it. But then it kind of changed it. It literally was something crazy along some quote from somebody over in Iran. That was the idea, and it was something along the lines of, "I really hope they do bombs, because if they don't, they will never ever leave," and or whatever. It's like. I think he even said something crazy, literally up to even up to a nuke or something like that. And it was the most insane thing. And then I guess someone pushed him on this, being like, "What the fuck? There's no way this is a real quote." Kind of questioning their journalistic integrity. And then it kind of got subtly changed to kind of being a little bit more, ambivalent, I guess might be a way to put it, a little bit more you could see it being a little bit more this is less retarded. It didn't even retract and nothing, just kind of, I don't know, it's just wild that we have these sort of things going on to the idea of so that is a thing going on, and that's all super in the weeds. But I thought it was interesting. There are entities out there still doing this sort of shit, trying to manufacture consent, and I don't know, yeah.
Right. 100%, man. And I mean, that's clearly happening with Trump himself coming out and justifying the deliberate targeting of civilian infrastructure by calling Iranians animals, right? I mean, he legitimately says the Iranians are animals. That's why blowing up their bridges and power stations isn't a war crime. I mean, if that's the sort of language you find acceptable, then yeah. Who knows where we could end up as far as a modern society and the globalist framework. I mean, it's almost as if, the sky's the limit in terms of the occult agenda at play here, and what I love to describe as the New World Order, which obviously people love to push back on.
Real quick, Austin. I have more details on that real quick. I just looked it up real quick because I felt bad giving such a shit explanation. So this is the quote right here. This is the BBC. It says, this is a quote. They found that said, Radin, also in his 20s and living in Tehran, said about them hitting energy infrastructure, using an atomic bomb, or leveling Iran. My honest reaction is that I'm okay with all of these. That's literally the quote. And I guess Libel gave them shit for it, and then they just kind of, and then they just changed it. So they literally changed the article. And it became instead, that literally in the same exact spot, the quote there got changed to, or anything else they have in mind. If attacking targets in the country brings down the Islamic Republic, I'm fine with that, because if the Islamic Republic survives this war, it will stay forever. So there, I was describing actually the later. So you see like the difference in these two, and they're trying to act as if they're the same. Like maybe I can see in their head they're gonna like kind of Jew it to be like perhaps like, oh well, it was a translation thing, so like minor differences, but like no, that is a huge contextual difference between those two things, and it's just I mean, I don't know. Maybe I don't speak whatever they speak over there, so maybe that is something that could get lost in translation. But a lot of people picked up on this and pointed out, like, it was as soon as they got like some outrage on the internet that they went and changed it. Because I mean, that's such a ridiculous quote. That's like, it's unbelievable to think anyone would say that. Like, oh, I'm just okay with that. Like, what? Like, I mean, who would be okay with an atomic bomb being dropped in their country? You can hate the empire. I hate our fucking empire. I would be fine if somehow individual acts of horror happened to these people, aside from the fact that it would almost certainly be manipulated to be used against us. So in a certain sense, I'm kind of not. But I would never, ever advocate for a nuclear bomb or energy infrastructure. Like, this is obviously going to descend your country into chaos even further and get thousands upon thousands of innocent people murdered. So, yeah. I mean, all for what? So that, I know women can have birth control. Like, people could just, what are we doing here? We really need these guys pumping and dumping. That's the issue here. We got to bring them to our first world standards. But yeah,
which that honestly reminded me of the Palm Beach Dexter. Did you see the Florida teen who brutally dismembered the registered sex offender and had like a list of dude? His girlfriend outed him though.
Pretty
it's
cool.
Not cool.
Don't do that.
I know, right?
Yeah, I mean, it's one of those things where, like, the story, you're like, that's fucking cool. Like, if you really, like, I gotta fucking murder, I mean, it's kind of tragic because he is a young guy, and you're like,
he's keeping DNA
that is super
slides,
cool.
Like he's legitimately Dexter, right? Which is the most hilarious aspect of it. I think he had the severed head and like chopped up body in a suitcase, and the only way that they found it on this property known as the compound, and allegedly in Palm Beach. This is or where was it? Yeah, Palm Bay. Sorry, but anyway, it turns out there were all these vultures that were circling the suitcase on the property, and that's how the authorities effectively found it. But yeah, he had basically cut them all up in a way as if he used the same tools, and like he just watched Dexter and wanted to mimic this kind of vigilante spirit in a way. It was interesting, but yeah, I thought just as far as the details of that specific case, it was kind of I watched a couple of different like just news segments on it from the Florida area, and yeah, it's definitely a strange story, but I'm surprised honestly it doesn't happen more often, really, just considering the environment we're in and the level of sinister abuse involved in the Epstein files in general. You would imagine this would almost escalate that potential concept and playing out in a way, as far as individual vigilantes who are out there trying to but if you have homicidal urges, then obviously I think it's the best way you could probably exercise them, right? So he's the people's champ at a certain level, but yeah, he kept a target list of local predators to take justice into his own hands, is what the report claims. But if you read a little bit of the case files, it's kind of hilarious. I mean, it's not hilarious, but obviously it was a premeditated murder, and he dismembered the body and stuffed it into that suitcase that I described. But I think surveillance footage is what captured him entering the property, but he was never actually seen leaving. But anyway, yeah, it was ultimately vultures circling the area, which brought the authorities the attention to the suitcase. But red droplets and splatter consistent with human blood were seen in the hallway and living room of Jones' home, and according to the arrest affidavit. And he apparently used a baseball bat, a knife, and a saw to dismember the body. but he told his girlfriend that he just bludgeoned him, just beat him to death with a baseball bat, and then he transported and dumped the remains near train tracks, basically, through suitcases and storage bins before being transported, basically. But yeah, he was charged with tampering of fabricating physical evidence, abuse of a dead body, transport of a human body in an unauthorized container, and murder. Dangerous, depraved, without premeditation. So Jones confessed to his girlfriend, saying, "I killed somebody and cut him up." There's got to be a better way.
This is what jury nullification is for, boys.
But I mean, damn, brother, it's just you effectively ended your life. Is the only not to say that I'm not just I definitely at a certain level I object to just the non-aggression principle in a way is what I kind of try and live by as my own personal philosophy. But there are many different situations and circumstances you could imagine where let's just say a violent reaction is almost necessary. But yeah, premeditated murder isn't necessarily a part of that, I guess. But I will say, though, obviously we got off track, but there was, as far as the civilian infrastructure being deliberately targeted, according to Colonel Douglas McGregor, there were 8 bridges, key bridges in Iran that were basically the Israeli military was responsible for bombing and targeting just the strategic strikes, basically. And this is why you have Congressman Randy Fine coming out and saying "Happy Power Plant and Bridge Eve," right? Is what he said on April 6th, which clearly was kind of piggybacking off of what Trump had said in his statement on Truth Social. But this is where you have today all these Iranian citizens up in arms and protesting over these aggressive threats against the national infrastructure. They were forming like human chains around these strategic
human
bridges,
shields, Austin.
Yeah, well, that's really what they kind of describe in the Fox News segment that I saw with these very angry female anchors who are absolutely outraged with the fact that women and children are being used as puppets to fake protests in Iran, and they're placing them in these strategically vital areas in order for them to actually maximize civilian casualties. And yeah, it's kind of a hilarious framework of what they're trying to provide their audience. But again, this is while Trump is making a statement about how these he says the Iranian human chains around key infrastructure is totally illegal, and they're not allowed to do that, basically, is what he says. But anyway, you have it. The Israeli ambassador to the UN making a public statement on Fox News as well, where he says we have the legitimacy to target civilian targets in Iran. So he just puts it plain and simple. It couldn't be more blatant. And this is following the strategic strikes on the civilian airport in Tehran, right? Which that alone is kind of fascinating. But they go on to, I saw individuals kind of making the statement that this is no real surprise and shouldn't shock anyone. And essentially the U.S. has adopted the Israeli Hannibal Protocol is what they're alluding to, and which obviously means killing your own to prevent them from being taken hostage. And I think, if Israel is in a way responsible for many of our foreign policy decisions and our military operations at this moment, then hey, I guess this is a plausible.
Stare into the Jewy abyss long enough, and the Jewy abyss will stare back at you.
Mm-hmm. That's what I'm saying. And Netanyahu himself made a statement. He says, Israel struck bridges and railways in Iran as they used them to, quote, transport raw materials for weapons. So he justified this publicly by claiming this is no longer the same Iran, nor is it the same Israel. We are changing the balance of power from one end to the other. And yeah, it's the Greater Israel Project in a real sense, and to deny that is obviously you're just not reflecting on reality in any real way, and so I do think this reckoning that they've been kind of alluding to, right? I mean, you saw the report, right? While all of this bluster and escalating language was happening, Trump's doomsday plane, according to the Daily Mail, was spotted circling U.S. Nuclear War Command Center as Iran rejects the ceasefire. So that was like kind of within that timeline of events, which I thought, again, is like just before Trump makes the overt threat of legitimately, dropping a nuke on on Iran. And I think what was the exact statement he made? A whole civilization will die tonight, never to be brought back again. I don't want that to happen, but it probably will. However, now that we have complete and total regime change, where different, smarter, and less radicalized minds prevail, maybe something revolutionary, wonderful can happen. Revolutionarily wonderful can happen. Who knows? We will find out tonight. One of the most important moments in the long and complex history of the world, 47 years of extortion, corruption, and death, will finally end. God bless the great people of Iran. So that was obviously what many people took as a blatant, out and out, nuclear threat toward Iran itself. And I mean, obviously, after he made that statement on Easter in regard to open the fucking strait, you crazy bastards, or you'll be living in hell, I saw Catherine Austin Fitts come out and make a statement in regard to the shutdown of the Strait of Hormuz. And she says it was a deliberate act of economic warfare that was basically designed to fracture global food and energy networks and set the stage for worldwide COVID 2.0 style lockdowns, which, hey, Mexico just killed cash, right? And this is a reality that I think many people are not quite ready to acknowledge.
Well, there's murmurs that along with the underreporting of casualties, that there perhaps has been an underreporting of damaging of infrastructure. And a lot of these high prices, a lot of people don't realize it's high prices you've seen from gas in the past month or so. That is simply from transportation issues. So we could end up in a whole other world if not only is there transportation issues, there are actual legitimate supply issues. Like, it's not a matter of that they can't get it to you, it's that it doesn't exist any fucking more. You know what I mean? Like, those are very, very different problems. And these are... So, I mean, this could be something that when the smoke settles, we start saying, oh, shit. And I mean, and add to we're talking timelines here too. I was just kind of perusing to see what the latest is. It's actually just a couple hours ago. And I guess Iran was bombing Israel again. I think. I mean, I'll probably try to get to the bottom of it. Maybe tomorrow in the morning dump or something to figure out. I think I saw something in the reply. I'm almost certain I would put money on it that they didn't just start that, because it's been pretty well confirmed that there was something going on. But the biggest snafu in this whole deal is the fact that supposedly as part of this deal, as was even said by the Pakistani prime minister who was helping kind of mediate, is this was supposed to include kind of reining in Israel as well. Like they're supposed to basically immediate ceasefire everywhere, including all parties, including Lebanon, where there is a greater Israel project 2.0. Every time I bring it up, basically twice as large as the original Nakba that were basically kind of kicked off the whole shindig we are dealing with now. And so I very, 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 very much struggle to buy that Israel is going to dial things back, let alone stop the war. Now, I can totally see Israel maybe playing some shenanigans. I do think both Israel and us are hazardless or ridiculously low on interceptors and stuff, missiles, and struggling with that. I think we've kind of exhausted our supplies. I think a lot of this is about getting a breather for the parties involved to be able to go mow the lawn again here in a bit. Now, I don't know if the U.S. may have learned its lesson, but I'm not entirely sure if Israel did. And when I say learn its lesson, I mean more that they may not have the incentives in place to want to do this again. But I don't know if that's going to be the case for Israel. So my point being is with the latest update in the timeline, we're supposed to be in a ceasefire. It doesn't look. This is looking a lot like an Israeli ceasefire, real fucking quick. By that it means we'll fire a little less, I guess. But it looks like they're back in it. So I don't know.
They legitimately are known to never honor these ceasefire negotiations, and by the way, or agreements, I should say. And I think it was Netanyahu himself who actually even came out and urged Trump against negotiating, effectively agreeing to a ceasefire, which I thought was hilarious. It was just before it was made public that apparently this ceasefire proposal was agreed upon, but still, it's like whenever you see, and I definitely believe that the escalation in Lebanon is not going to end in any real sense. And just as far as I read this article from the Responsible Statecraft, right, where it discusses burning the lawn as Israel's policy in militarily in Lebanon. They claim Israel is pursuing the Rafah model in southern Lebanon. And this, I mean, legitimately was just reported. And essentially, Israel's defense minister said in a statement that Israeli forces are working to implement the, quote, Rafah and Beit Hanun model. I'm not entirely sure if Beit Hanun is how you pronounce it, but this is the Rafah model, basically, which is in southern Lebanon. And essentially, according to the article, this specific statement is causing all of these very legitimate fears in terms of Israel planning to quote flatten entire towns in an attempt to defeat Hezbollah once and for all. So this will involve clearly the preparation for full-scale invasion, which allegedly is already happening, and this new found intensity of their approach and what they will begin to focus on specifically is essentially this new brutal form of warfare, which they've been actively practicing in every single theater of war you can point to at this moment. I mean, I think there was just like a Palestinian refugee camp in Gaza, right, which was just targeted, and I think over 12 refugees were killed or something to that effect. I might be wrong about the number, but either way, the fact that burn the lawn is a key strategy in southern Lebanon for Israel. I don't think they're going to de-escalate in any real way, and I don't think that these ceasefire negotiations very much apply to the ongoing Greater Israel project. And so, yeah, we can point to maybe, let's just say, I view it as Iran essentially didn't kowtow to every last demand that was being made by the Trump administration, and so therefore they had to save face and scale back. Look, it only benefits everyone if you claim that you reach some sort of agreement on a ceasefire deal, right? And so that will allow them to consistently continue this conflict and escalate from, I view, from within. And so as many times before with Gaza, we witnessed them, which you kind of alluded to, which is using these ceasefires as a moment to build back up forces to re-engage in a more very aggressive and escalated way.
I'll give you a tiny bit of optimism here. I think one thing to keep in mind is, I guess I say it's anything optimism, but so far as negotiations go, if you're understanding leverage, who has the upper hand, whatever, keep in mind, if you've been, for those who've been paying attention to the minutia here, Iran's 10-point plan that they were acting like they just realized it was put out, which I think it got put out like days or maybe even a week or two ago, that they said it. Like, there haven't been negotiations, but they did just like kind of declare the world, like, this is our terms if we were to come to an agreement that Iran put out a while ago. And then for some reason, the Trump administration is acting now like they just received it or something, even though it's been out. But whatever, cool. I mean, if that's what it takes is them to act like they didn't know that ever existed. But I think the U.S. had some sort of like 15-point plan or something. So, but they're working off of the 10-point plan. So from a negotiations perspective, they're already starting off from the framing of what Iran wants. And like essentially, obviously, I'm kind of, fudge around with this or that. but that's some hopeful, I would say.
I do agree, because I saw that report of initially, as the original report of the ceasefire being rejected by Iran surfaced. You have basically a follow-up report that showed Iran rejecting the ceasefire proposal while emphasizing permanent end to the war was the key point that they were focusing on. A permanent end to the war. They requested a safe passage agreement in the Strait of Hormuz, and also the lifting of sanctions, and this included reparations of reconstruction, which I thought was interesting. And
I think they were willing to. I don't know if it's in the 10-point plan, but I think I've seen somewhere, or at least overtures from somewhere, if it's not in the plan, that it seems like they may be willing to reparations be essentially just kind of essentially taken out in the form of tolls through the Strait of Hormuz, which is really kind of what most straits that are kind of controlled by any country, which is what they do. So it's really not that bizarre. So yeah, anyway, sorry, go ahead.
I think this was just their kind of counter to the reason in which they rejected the original proposal. And this is when they actually rejected the proposal is when Trump came out with the most aggressive nuclear threat aspect of his kind of heightened language that he was using to negotiate. And you saw Iran respond by apparently closing all diplomatic and indirect channels of communication with the U.S., allegedly, although they obviously came to a deal following that report as well. So who knows how legitimate these reports were. But this was a Reuters report that was claiming that just after the original rejection of the proposal, you have Iran closing off all the diplomatic channels of communication with the U.S., and this was all suspended. Apparently, they went to the. I guess they apparently decided to. It says suspending the exchange of messages is what they were involved with following Trump's threat to kill Iran's whole civilization. So that was their reaction to it, which I did think was, obviously it made sense. But then apparently somehow they were brought back to the negotiating table, and allegedly this 2-week ceasefire includes the reopening of the Strait of Hormuz, right? And initially, Trump had said Iran proposed a workable 10-point plan, as you mentioned, that could help end the war launched by the U.S. So here's the point that I thought was interesting. He's pulling back on his threats to widen and escalate the attacks, but the latest threat over the Iran war basically was it was obviously, I think the more important point was the Strait of Hormuz kind of post that he made, right? Because for him to use that language, obviously, when you were discussing it earlier, you didn't really take that seriously. And I get what you're saying, because it did seem much more like Trump's art of the deal, not as straightforward and legitimately concerning.
More the same that he's been doing.
Yeah, absolutely. But at the same point, according to, if you look at what just the final point that Catherine Austin Fitts had made, she basically claims that the ultimate agenda here in regard to the closure of the Strait was to further destabilize the global economy, obviously, by crippling the supply chains by design. So deliberately doing this by pushing the world globally more toward famine in certain geographical areas. And this was all in order to advance the control grid and depopulation agenda at large. And so that all does fit perfectly into, much of what we kind of have been predicting and almost expect in many ways. But for the 10-point plan, as far as just the reopening of the Strait, I do find to be, very much a silver lining. And because it's like $7 for unleaded out here in LA, right? Like we're getting to extraordinary measures as far as the level of consequences just domestically in terms of the conflict at large and how it's affecting the petroleum industry and things of that nature. But so the 2-week ceasefire plan includes allowing both Iran and Oman to charge fees on ships transiting through the Strait. You have this is according to some sort of regional official. And so on condition of an anonymity to discuss internal deliberations, the Strait is obviously the territorial waters of both Oman and Iran. So it seems like this was the key primary focus of any sort of agreement, was at the very least safe passage through the Strait of Hormuz. So if that's the case, then yeah, we have made some sort of legitimate headway in terms of negotiating an end to the conflict, but in no way am I confident in that taking place. But yeah, who knows how this will continue to escalate and kind of what direction it takes. But I definitely feel like the Greater Israel Project is not ending anytime soon.
Story of our lives, but probably a good time for us to go to intermission. Come back, maybe talk a little bit about some Epstein lore, bring on some patrons, shoot the bull with them. Sorry we didn't get the phone lines up today. Running a little bit late today, had some issues. So oh well, a little bit more patron focused episode. We got a packed house in the back there. I don't know who of them wants to come up, but they're all welcome to. We'll shoot the bull with them, or either way, I'm sure I can spin Austin up to generate enough content out of him either way. So let's go to intermission. We'll see you guys in a few minutes. Enjoy this banger from Jacob. Last one was super dope. I'm sure this one will be just the same. Making a high bar for yourself, Jacob. But with that, guys, we'll see you guys in a few minutes. Go take a leak. Go grab a snack. Do whatever you got to do. We'll see you in a few.
Segment 3 this evening is titled The Children and the CIA. We've learned a lot of unknown activities of the CIA in years past, some of them disturbing, to say the least. Tonight, we'll learn of the agency's interest in children. Paul Altmaier of our investigative unit has assembled these facts.
These are home movies taken in the 1950s at a European camp of the Children's International Summer Village, a program designed to bring together children from around the world for a better understanding of one another. NBC News has learned that the CIA was studying these youngsters, some as young as 11, as possible future recruits. The studies took place at summer camps in Hennefest, Norway, and Vienna, Austria, in 1959 and 1960. According to CIA documents we have examined, this was Sub-Project 103 of the agency's top-secret MK-Ultra program. San Antonio, Texas. NBC News has also learned that the CIA paid for a study of adolescents here, and in 2 other Texas cities, Austin and El Paso, in 1958 and 1959. It was a study of how youngsters behave without adult supervision. This study, MK-Ultra Sub-Project 102, refers to data being collected on 462 subjects in 7 secondary schools. No child is identified by name.
What is known tonight is this: authorities have the children and the 2 men accused of abusing those children, and evidence that they may be only part of a larger, dreadful story. CBS News correspondent Rita Braver reports.
Law enforcement authorities suspect they may have stumbled on an international child abuse ring when an anonymous call led police in Tallahassee, Florida, to this park. 2 well-dressed men were discovered with 6 filthy, ragged, insect-bitten children, aged 2 to 6.5. A passerby with a home video camera took these pictures as the men were arrested and booked for child abuse. The children were confused, said they'd been traveling for a long time in a van, stopping at camps. Today, police released these photographs, hoping to learn more about the 6 youngsters who said they didn't know where they came from or where they were going.
But at least one of the 6 were sexually abused.
The 2 men reportedly told police that children were being weaned from their mothers and taken to Mexico for a special school for brilliant children. Papers the men were carrying led to Washington, D.C., where police last night searched a residence used by a commune or cult known as the Finders.
And the women are always pregnant, and they have a child, and then they seem like they get pregnant again.
And there was another search at this Finders warehouse where law enforcement authorities said they found a photographic studio, a computer bank, and at least 3 large bags full of slides showing, according to one source, satanic, ritualistic activities involving torture, bloodletting, and sexually explicit acts involving children. Virginia police are now investigating a farm where the group reputedly brought children.
Well, it looked like to me they was out there, didn't wait very much.
You don't think they were well cared for then?
I think they were malnutrition.
No members of the finders were apprehended, but police say they do have some leads. The FBI and U.S. Customs Service have now joined the investigation, and officials say they're still trying to figure out exactly what is going on and how these and perhaps other children may be involved. Rita Braver, CBS News, Washington.
They were 6 small children. They were hungry and covered with insect bites. It seemed as if they hadn't been bathed for days. One child may have been sexually abused. They were so isolated, police said, they didn't even seem to know what a telephone was. The children were found yesterday in a park in Tallahassee, Florida. 2 men from Washington, D.C. were charged with child abuse. 1 resisted arrest. Police think the men were part of a satanic cult that required its members to surrender their children.
We're getting information that adults are encouraged to join this group, and one of the stipulations of joining this group is that they give up to the rights of their children.
The men said they were taking the youngsters to Mexico to start a school for brilliant children. Police thought otherwise. Today they raided a home and a warehouse in the nation's capital gathering evidence. Neighbors said for years it seemed something was wrong, something was going on at that house.
That something was off. One time in particular, I see it was probably in the 40s, and there was a little boy kind of wandering around outside, and a woman was out there too in bare feet.
The 2 men are being held on $100,000 bail in Florida. The children ages 2 to 6 have been turned over to state health officials.
All right, we're back. Before we get into it, let's take a moment. We got a few super chats, and so I figured, hey, let's address these. I got Thomas, not really questions so much as just a little appreciation. Thompson J. Hudson sent over $20. This is on Austin's channel. It says, is $1. I don't know what to make of that, but okay. Appreciate the support for Austin there. Liam sent over $2. Appreciate the support. Big shout out. He's got some dope art over on Instagram. Go check out his stuff. Does cool little paintings. Then another one from Thomas J. Hudson for another $20. Once again to Austin or Moose. Okay, but so you got $40 from Tom. I'm not sure who Liam sent it over to. So he's just hooking you up. Just saying some gobbledygook and giving you money. I don't know what he's saying there, but hey, it's money talks. That's all that matters. So we definitely appreciate the support. We like money. So if you want to give us money, please do. We'll try to bring up what you had to say. So appreciate the support. With that, I guess I don't know, Austin, do you want to bring on a patron and then talk about the Epstein stuff, or you want to take a moment and talk a little bit about some Epstein stuff and then bring on patrons? It's your call. We can bring them on to, but we have some waiting on us, so it's your call, buddy.
Yeah,
honestly, I did a little video. If you want, I can lead it up with the Rogan video for you. So,
yeah, that would be a great little segue there. But I did think, just as far as I should at least finalize the point and then segue just directly into Epstein, because that 10-point plan that you mentioned, I found all 10 points, and basically it's very, very brief, but there was guarantee of non-aggression against Iran, maintenance of Iran's control over the Strait, acceptance of Iran's uranium enrichment, which I found interesting, lifting of all primary and secondary sanctions, ending all UN Security Council and IAEA Board of Governors resolutions against Iran, reparations to Iran for damages, withdrawal of all U.S. combat forces from the region, into the war on all fronts, including against proxies in Lebanon, release of blocked Iranian assets abroad, and commitments to be formalized in a binding UN Security Council resolution, turning the agreements into international legal obligations. So back to square one, basically, in a certain sense. But
a little too good be true. Like finding truth on the Joe Rogan Experience. Not a place for that. We don't do truth here. I mean, what is he going to do? Push back? Like when he has the head of the FBI saying the most ridiculous things on his program? What's he going to do? Here's a clip that's been that's been kind of gone a little viral. I think you guys may see why, but I feel like this is a good lead into what me and Austin are about to talk about in a second.
It's all just a cat and mouse game. People are like, we'll elect the Democrats next time. It's like, but it's all the same shit has been happening forever. They haven't been helping anybody forever. They're letting fucking politicians slurp on kids. All of our fucking money goes to Israel and they're using it to fucking genocide people. It's like everybody is scared out of their wits right now. It's like our religious leaders are afraid to speak out, and it's like it's a time where it's like Satan is amongst us and our religious leaders are fucking talking about bullshit at the poll. It's just like, what is going, I don't know, man.
We got to get you off those antidepressants, son. You're losing your fucking marbles.
You think I am?
Come hang out with us. Just chill out.
I'm here.
I do love about Theo that like we've delved into his past before and how he's like weirdly like ties to like some weird European royalty or something. Right. But it's like, but he does genuinely. He does give off a genuine vibe that is genuine. So I just think like maybe there's something to the idea that blood opens doors, and that he just is this hapless goofball that's kind of figuring out things on the fly. And he just so happened to be like some bastard son of some royalty, and it just happened to open doors for him. It's just kind of almost like who am I thinking of? Who's the what's Mr. Magoo? He's kind of Mr. Magooing it, you know, but like with his royal blood opening doors. Is kind of the vibe I get from Theo, like hanging out with Jared Kushner and like Ivanka, just like not even realizing it. Then like a month later, be like, I think they're responsible for lots of deaths. Right. Like just kind of just stumbling about through whatever this fucking world is. And just kind of losing his mind. Like he's figuring this on the fly and just be like, oh my God, all these demons around me. And Rogan's like, whoa. Let's get you in those zero gravity, no sensory tanks or whatever the fuck. And let's get you in the sauna, get you working out, get you all oiled up, get you over to my little mind fixer or whatever they got, or whatever they're trying to do. It's weird. But anyways,
yeah, basically. But no, I do feel like that's why I always I saw Theo at the Comedy Store years ago because I always found his act to be absolutely entertaining for sure. And I thought he was a very just as far as his comedic value and as a stand-up, I always enjoyed his bits and every time that I saw him work on stage, it kind of appealed to me in a way, just as far as his style. But he always has come off as a genuine and authentic person, just trying to kind of like. But obviously, it's not as if like. I think maybe a part of that is I have a weakness for people who have struggled with substance abuse because I personally have experienced that, at least some experience with that, and so I find people who actually at least are willing to be honest with themselves in that context and attempt to apply themselves and reflect on who they've become and hopefully just attempt to better themselves on a daily basis through exercising these newfound philosophies in life, and I think through just I guess the way that the descriptive term that they use is basically through working the program or through recovery, right? You do kind of see people essentially overall become better just individually, right? And that's just a reflection of kind of individuals in a like-minded sense attempting to better their lives based on the consequences they've endured. And so I value that. I think there's something to that message, and if you can provide just by example kind of a window into how you can actually recover from making terrible decisions in a past life or whatever the case may be, and you can make amends and kind of redirect yourself and at least fundamentally manufacture an ethical foundation worthwhile in going forward in life in general, then it's something that I think is a little bit of a blind spot for me. So whenever I do see people who are seemingly actively following that path and legitimately trying to better themselves, although I will say that Joe Rogan has a blind spot for antidepressants, and I understand that because I legitimately, I'm philosophically opposed to antidepressants in a way, just because I do think we're all psychologically vulnerable, and this kowtowing to weak-mindedness is very much a part of, essentially, it's a part of the deconstruction in a way internally within the subversion of culture within America, not just America alone. It's not isolated to modern culture in the US, but I do think that it's probably best represented by the younger generations within the US in terms of this weak-mindedness and this soft kind of a psychological perspective of life in general. Like we briefly mentioned last week, that kid, I think he was like from Dallas. He's like 18 years old or something, and he said that he refuses to enter the workforce and shouldn't be shouldn't be basically forced to, because he was not. He was born without his consent, was the point he had made, right? And so that's just a reflection of the point I'm trying to make in terms of the weak-minded aspect of the younger generations, and I think that has been conditioned in us, and into us from a very young age, and it's just a product of the evolution of just culture in general as we become more digitized, and obviously just in terms of the convenient nature of the overall structure of the system. But anyway, so I always had kind of a soft spot for people who I do see working through recovery and kind of let's just say warding off their own personal demons and slaying the dragon, right? And I think that is a beautiful thing, and I appreciate it very much. But I have my skepticism in regard to Theo personally, because of his background, his genealogy, and these individuals are kind of positioned into very influential. Let's just say his platform is extraordinarily prominent and definitely influential, as being listed as one of the top few who helped kind of even change the course of the ultimate consequences of the election cycle, which is interesting enough. But he's absolutely
he had
right.
all those guys on,
But in this statement that he made, I mean, he's absolutely right in every sense of the word, as far as it almost represents exactly how I feel, as far as just his kind of emotional struggle with it, and the fact that it's not at the top of everyone's mind and a priority as far as scaling back the structured system, which obviously preys upon the most vulnerable among us. And this has never been more blatant and overt in our faces, to the point to where it does feel demoralizing. Right. And so it's up to us to individually push back on that, and obviously appreciate the silver linings and the things in life that are absolutely worthwhile, and the reason in which we wake up in the morning, and focus on what we can appreciate and value as far as our own personal lives. And man, if you don't have much, then make it your goal and focus to obviously acquire those things, and surround yourself with people who are potentially attempting to better themselves, and not dragging you down into darkness. And I think as long as you are working on your own character defects, you're hyper aware of where, let's just say, just personally, kind of where you fail, right? Tend to fail, and it's kind of your weak points in life, just as far as your character, and it's just an interesting thing. And so for me, it's hard to entirely condemn him, because again, how can we be certain of some of these controlled assets or controlled opposition assets that we like to reference and isolate and kind of use as an example? It's very difficult for me personally to 100% come to any certain conclusion that Theo Von is absolutely a controlled asset, for controlled opposition purposes. who knows? It's
I
possible.
think people
maybe
try to
he's-
handle him, obviously. I mean, people it'd be
Yeah,
crazy
and I
if people
think
weren't trying to
normal.
handle him, just like with Rogan. It's just they obviously were successful with
Oh my
Rogan.
God. Dude, I saw and by the way, Jake Shields, I saw react to this, right? And just as far as this Joe Rogan's reaction to Theo's statement. And he basically says that he always liked Joe, and he tries to consistently kind of push back on his own personal bias when it comes down to, could Joe actually be compromised, or is he acting in good faith and really means what he says, right? And he just has a bad take occasionally on things because he is insulated from reality at a certain level, and maybe he is almost a victim of his own success. And this does happen where you want to, in a real way, insulate yourselves from just kind of having anyone around that could potentially kind of let's just say poke holes in the boat, right? Or which obviously, I just think the point being is he's always attempting to defend his position so there won't be a negative reaction and consequence to the overall appeal of the show. Maybe I'm not entirely certain. I'm not attempting to defend Joe Rogan, but I do think that the fact that he has this ExpressVPN as a major sponsor that pays Joe like basically $400 or $400,000 per episode, which is like an IDF cutout, right? Then it's a little bit interesting. Like, how often do they have they paid Joe, this sponsorship that's fairly an extraordinary a number, right? And who knows what kind of influence that could potentially have just on his approach on how he would maybe present certain information. Not entirely certain. It's hard to even kind of distinguish in those things for yourself, right? And that's what I'm always attempting to do is I always had kind of an appreciation for Rogan, right? Just because he was a huge introductory path, I guess, avenue toward many different, even Tripoli, right? I found through Rogan by going to the Comedy Store, right? Which was interesting. But as soon as I found Tinfoil Hat, it was like, no turning back. But at the same point, you always have to acknowledge and identify the potential conflicts of interest, which obviously having major financial sponsorships, which pay you an extraordinary amount of money, could very much influence your at the very least, your presentation of information. So it's possible that he genuinely feels this way. He's just politically ignorant in regard to the overall permanent establishment in the pedophile-occupied government, or he legitimately is only concerned with his buddy, and he actually does have a blind spot for antidepressants, which I personally agree with, right? Just as far as the chemical imbalance in your brain and not necessarily sort of having a positive reaction in terms of the side effects, right? I think so many people who are on antidepressants become suicidal. I mean, it's kind of extraordinary when you look into the details, but I don't view it as an overwhelmingly positive thing to prioritize as for mental health, right? And things of that nature. And so it could lead him into more of an emotional overreaction, right? Is the point that I'm making. And maybe that's what Joe's seeing is Theo's feeling black pilled and very much as we all are in a certain level, just in emotionally objecting to, right, the state of the world in general and the power paradigm. And I think Joe's just trying to talk him back from the ledge in a way, considering the context. So potentially he could realize the things that are most worthwhile and valuable in life, which aren't necessarily focusing entirely on these things we can't control, which is not to say you shouldn't be aware, right? And fundamentally exposed to these things. But yeah, you'll go mad if you want to control the outcome. I mean, that's a losing battle, I have to say. So that's my only point there. And I'll stop talking about Theo because honestly, there's so much more worthwhile in covering, but I did find it strange.
We have a Yeah. Sorry. I was just going to say we had a guest here. I think we got at least a couple callers who want to call in, patrons this time around, so we get the video calls. We got Krabs and I think Shy on deck. I know maybe we'll get one more in after that. But hey, what's up, Krabs? You got the stunner shades on. Look like you're at a construction, like like on a construction site or something. But what's up, Krabs?
Cowabunga. No, hey, kind of. I don't even really remember what previously kind of spawned this. I wasn't gonna come on, but Austin said something, and you kind of touched on it here with your outro there. Oh, like everybody's kind of feeling the funk right now, and I know I come here, come to listen to Austin, come to listen to Jose. It is like, fuck, guys, I don't know. I don't want to put this evil on you, Ricky Bobby, but like a lot of us are coming to y'all for therapy, therapeutical, or not quite like, hey, what should we do? Or I guess my question is, whenever I don't know what motivated you to start your shows, but is there any inherited responsibility on y'all for starting these shows of kind of like, hey, audience, I know you don't know what to do. I don't know what to do, but like, here's what I think we should be doing. We need to organize this, or like not be doing that, or is anything of where I'm trying, like,
no, I get what you're saying.
I think I get what you're. I will say, like, that's kind of my show started. I mean, we kind of talk parapolitics in here, and I do that a lot on my show. But when I started my show out, I was very much into like libertarian theory, political philosophy, that sort of stuff, praxis, like how, like exactly what you're talking about. Like, what should we do? Even once you have the theory down, then it's like the theory doesn't tell you necessarily what to do. It just tells you like, I mean, it sort of does, but you're like, so how do we get from there to here? That's what I talked about a lot. I came to a lot of the conclusion of like essentially agorism, the idea of like not to be like essentially non-political involvement, in the sense of like not like I see politics as this bizarre paradigm game where like the only way to really win is to not play. Like you're not like, it's literally just kind of sucking your loosh. That's all. It's just trying to get you stuck in the cycle. You're like, oh no, like. I mean, how much shit did we get for being like, this is stupid, like not being in the Trump train, and now all these fucking people are out here grifting so hard about like how appalled they are about their tweets and these recent tweets and stuff, which they are appalling, but these are like the same ones that are like all on it. So it's like they get a grift on like, oh, I think I'm gonna vote for Trump, and then they get a grift on, oh, I left Trump, and you're like, okay. Whereas my perspective is, yeah, like so I do think, I don't know if it's necessarily a responsibility, but I mean, I did, like, part of why I started is because I was fucking wigging out in COVID. Like during COVID, I was still active duty military at that time, and I was like freaking out. I'd been studying libertarian philosophy and stuff, and read all the theory books and stuff, and was kind of like, oh shit, this is all the stuff I read about popping off right fucking now. And like, here I am with my pants down working for the government. Like, oh no, I'm screwed. Like, yeah, like I knew, like in a sense I wasn't screwed. Like in the moment I knew I was gonna be taken care of because it's for the government. But it's like I was working for the government at that time and getting hooked up. But it's just like eventually the gravy train ends, and I'm seeing like the stuff that I was thinking in theory might happen like 50 years from now or something, kind of popping off now. And like, yet some of it was a little bit like, oh no, maybe I thought it was gonna be way worse than it was. But yeah, I was wigging out on COVID. So this actually, the podcast became an outgrowth of what do we do? So this was part of what do we do? And also to some extent, this was like sort of my bridge from helping me get out of the military. Not that I make buku bucks off this, but I make a little bit. So it's one extra thing. And I also do think to some degree, maybe I'm helping. I mean, after a while, I kind of came to the conclusion, and for praxis, perhaps there's also the idea of like, getting involved in parapolitics and kind of learning these things and kind of be able to point out actual like tangible, not tangible is not the right way to put it, but actual real world events and a lot of times where you can kind of prove that like the evil of the state. And so it's kind of like taking the theory that I already had and kind of being like, look, I always tell you in theory how evil they are. Here's the Oklahoma City bombing. Let's look how fucking evil they are. Look at their fingerprints all over this shit. Yeah, it kind of all is an outgrowth off that. Even the Goofy, even like the Tower Gang and stuff to some extent was like saying no words and stuff was kind of pushing it back against the woke and not like the gay woke that, Hegseth is talking about, which is anything I don't like. So the James Lindsays of the world pointing at everything saying that's woke while they're the biggest woke faggots in the world. But anyways, yeah, that's, I don't really know exactly what I'm saying. I don't necessarily think there's like a responsibility if someone just wants to do a show, but that's part of why I did it, because I was wigging out. I was never someone who was into public speaking or anything like that. I was just like, I got to do something. Like, it was actually an outgrowth of trying to build this. I used to be on Facebook. We had this thing called the Liberty Movement. We were trying to build these like separate, they used to have a great group system on Facebook, and we were essentially trying to create like a network of groups. And like because at that time, like there was a lot of, we were really worried about losing contact with people or trying to build community, like stuff like that in real life. So I mean, we were kind of working on those things. Now, Facebook got really fickle with the censorship around that time and kind of fucked that all up. But this podcast actually started as like a promotional thing for that and like an idea I had. But anyways, not to get in the weeds, Austin, you can answer this now too. I guess I don't know where you're going to take it, but I think you're probably in a similar vein as me.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, personally, I was desperate for an avenue to opt out of the permanent establishment structured system. So I wanted to make sure I personally could limit my dependence and the dependence of the family, specifically directly around me. Just limit our dependence on the overall sort of fascist system that's being, I think, permanently entrenched in a real way globally. But it's really in order to insulate myself and my family from the consequences of that establishment agenda, and especially just understanding how the bureaucracy is very much structured. That the vast majority of public policy is sort of decided in a private room filled with unelected bureaucrats. And so I personally was most focused on bridging the gap between so many of the quote conspiracy theories, which was really just a term to undermine and dismiss the credibility of these alternative kind of theories attached to these various cases that were inevitably a high impact culturally, just in terms of the modern kind of societal impact. But I did think that too many people who were willing to kind of pursue those additional layers and rabbit holes that were very much being kind of what's the term when it's very much kind of like, oh shit, there's a term when basically you politically highlight it as almost it starts with a P, but whatever. The point being is that it basically kind of like, by putting it on a disingenuous pedestal, right, you can essentially drive people away from even considering the reality of this alternative theory and how much it could be far more plausible than the official narrative, which we're all effectively meant to embrace at face value. So I ultimately wanted to prioritize bridging that gap between, credible evidentiary connections in a way that would be far more plausible to an audience than, let's just say, not necessarily objectively approaching the information, right? Because that was my point, was I didn't want to just go around confirming my own personal bias. I wanted to make sure I was attempting to, only connect, legitimate, compelling and let's just say corroborated evidence in order to further reinforce, the
You're
reality.
looking to genuinely be proved wrong. Here's my statement.
Exactly.
Seriously, prove me. I don't want to be right on this weird shit. Prove me fucking wrong.
Exactly. And in the kind of I don't know, philosophical approach that I'm taking. I feel like hopefully that in itself provides some sort of value for people, whether it's just an introduction to concepts where they can pick them up and run with them. That's all I'm attempting to do, is reshare information that was absolutely extraordinary and paradigm shifting for myself personally. And that information that appeals to me is what I bring to the table, because I'm so desperate just to try and find others who find it as extraordinarily interesting as I do, right? And that was another thing. Like every moment that I can get Sam to go, oh my God, on whatever this is or whatever the fucking case may be, right? Where it's like you actually get a reaction from the person you're having a conversation with, because it's an absolutely, extraordinary smoking gun. Those are the moments I live for, right? It kind of fuels me because I know I'm not alone. I know I have people like JJ Vance from Operation GCD, who's in the chat right now, who are just absolute, wealth, just a wealth of knowledge and resources, just as far as the level of concepts he's introduced me to. So if people like that, people like Jose that appealed to me from day one, just in his approach and willingness to kind of objectively say what he believes and not pull punches. And I felt like in the moment in which I found Jose, it was like not only the OKC bombing concept that he was kind of presenting, and the evidentiary connections that were so valuable in that, but it was also the fact that, like, pop culturally, like in the vein of what you are attempting to do, in my mind, was just kind of, it's not culture jamming, but it's objectively and honestly pushing back on the most, ridiculous taboo narratives that you can associate in a disingenuous way to what I view as, philosophically viable and probably, as far as the path forward, to some sort of ultimate solution based mentality that you could actually, actively, practice in your own life. And that's the ultimate thing, is how can we find a way to at least remind everyone, right, that you and your family are absolutely despised by the ruling class. And this is why my podcast is called The Underclass. I view this is the art of war. I've said it many times: know your enemy, and we share a common enemy. And until we are all willing to objectively agree upon this, I see no path forward. And so for my own personal life, I will very much attempt to continually, reflect on my own shortcomings and improve, because that's all we can really control. And so at that point, learn what you find valuable, and I think overexpose yourself, because that's what so few people actually, they don't engage in life like this. I think many people in sort of the modern sense of kind of the average lifestyle, man, they're not they're not prying back the layers of deceit and attempting to legitimately come to a conclusion on any specific or particular case of interest. Only then can you really kind of like provide yourself with that defense mechanism necessary to engage in the deception. But I think that ultimately I couldn't be more grateful, because I feel as if this aspect of it's like almost philosophically, this is very community based in what we're doing just with the show. And I think that is so valuable in this moment, because of what Theo, whether he's controlled opposition or not, what Theo said in that statement on Joe Rogan is
that was from his heart. That was from his fucking soul. Whether
it's just, to me, brother, I could almost discuss any of these particular subjects that I kind of over prepped for every week. You know what I mean? To essentially present the information in hopefully the most efficient and effective way, in a chronological order that makes sense, right? But at the same time, it's like, man, I just feel like at the end of the day, the real primary goal for me is to know that that, man, I'm not alone in this. There are people that feel exactly the way I do. There are people who are over emotionally reacting to this, but it's not it's a natural reaction. You should overreact emotionally to this in the current structured system. And if you aren't,
you can't.
No, I mean, that's where
no, you're 100% justified in overreacting to absolute evil surrounding you. But if you react appropriately, you'll be seen as a crazy person.
Absolutely. That's why,
yeah.
The only final thing I wanted to say is basically that, obviously, I think it's natural to have that initial overreaction. Just know that's what it is, right? And effectively acknowledge it for what it is, and then move forward in an objective, reasonable, measured and calculated manner, and hopefully come to, in either way, it's emotionally, in a real sense, provocative, and it should be, and so I entirely relate to the way in which Theo sort of framed that statement, and but yeah, at the end of the day, we have to move forward in a very kind of just skeptical and calculated manner, and to where we aren't entirely deluded by the emotional reaction that is only natural. But anyway, that's basically
right, Mr. Krabs, we got to get rid of you. We appreciate you calling in. We'll bring in Shy. Thank you, brother. We'll see you again on another one, I'm sure, soon.
Later, y'all.
Let's get Shy in here, and we'll try to see. We'll see what all Shy's got for us. We might be able to squeeze in one more. We got God is Love waiting for us, which is, I think, what the down pilot said or something like that. So seems appropriate. Shy, we gonna get Shy in here, or did he leave? Is he gone? No, he's there. Okay, I don't know.
Dude,
Austin,
did you see that Jared Leto, his fucking high school teacher was John Kiriakou?
No.
Yes, brother. All right,
school?
I gotta play you like a minute clip.
No, we don't have time.
No, we do. We have to.
All right, we gotta bring Shy on, but you can show it to Shy. Show it to Shy. What's up, Shy?
Check the video out, Austin. Play the video for us.
All right. While he finds the video, Shy, what's up? You got something for us?
What's going on? Yeah,
what's up,
man. Yeah, I definitely can understand what Krabs was talking about, especially what you guys like the overreacting versus the other extreme of the cognitive dissonance that we're in. It's kind of crazy, but yeah, it is. There is a certain power to be had with having an ear of almost a worldwide audience.
Mm-hmm. It is.
Hopefully it grows for you guys as it comes on, but it's definitely more. When it comes to power is responsibility.
I guess we'll play this video. I gotta say though, Jared Leto is slowly morphing into like what the female, the male trans think they look like. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
But go ahead and play it.
Starts off as the Joker.
What's life like as a spy?
Oh, Jared, it was so much fun. I missed it very much, actually. Got to see the world, 65 countries, recruited 9 spies over the years to work for us. It was fun.
Remember, let's Jared? Get this part of this story out of the way. You were actually my high school teacher.
I was indeed. I was. American government and American history.
I do remember you because every once in a while there's a teacher who stands out, who actually, for some reason or another, gets you to pay attention, to listen. So thank you for that.
Thank
you. This part is the most extraordinary aspect of the video because basically he discusses how his boss at this high school that he taught Jared Leto in was a CIA asset who was faking, as basically had a false identity as a professor or a teacher, and was essentially came out to him and recruited him as a spy. This is how he joined the agency. It's the most ridiculous story I've ever heard.
That's very kind of you.
It's insane, man. This is a pretty weird world to go from high school teacher to international spy.
Jared, life takes these very odd twists and turns. You just never know what's in store for you.
Such a weird video.
I'm waiting for this to be debunked.
That last semester that I had you in class, I went to see the professor, and he said, listen, I ought to tell you, I'm not really a professor here. I'm actually undercover as a professor. I'm a senior CIA officer. Would you be interested in joining the CIA? And I said, sure. Hadn't really thought of it, but I was getting married soon after graduation. I had no job, and I thought, well, this sounds like fun. So next thing I know, a few months later, I was in the CIA. When I first arrived, somebody met me at the front gate, and they took me into an auditorium with about 30 other people, and I raised my right hand and I swore to uphold the Constitution. I didn't swear to keep the agency's crimes a secret, but I swore to uphold the Constitution.
Anyway, that's basically the most important aspect of that video interview.
Shy, you got any questions for us? Or are you just chilling, doggy?
Yeah, I don't know what I just watched, but
That's weird, right? That felt creepy. I felt like uncomfortable watching. Something about the way they delivered those lines felt weird. But anyways,
it definitely did. And somebody mentioned in the chat that it could potentially be AI. Possible. I'm waiting for the debunking. I mean, it's had significant traction, sort of going minor, I guess viral in a way, but not really. It's sort of a minor application of the term, but you get the point. I mean, thousands of likes on some of these recreated videos of what allegedly happened in this interview. But anyway,
you guys, my bad. You guys seen they did that drone show of like the whole Jesus crucifixion.
Where did the drone show happen?
Was it? So maybe some South American country, but it was giant. It was almost on some Bloombeam.
Whoa, wasn't that the Brazilian Jesus statue? That's like isn't it Rio de Janeiro? Or no, that's like the river. It's what's the name of the fucking big ass?
Yeah, that's in
yeah. But there's a certain there's that one giant. Yeah. I know what you're talking about. They did a drone show. It was like almost like a blue beam type.
Yeah.
And a lot of people are like, whoa. And I think it was like a planned presentation, but it still was like a what the fuck. Kind of makes you really think about things like Bluebeam, and you're like, they could do this shit,
Yeah, so I was thinking about how that kind of aspect of how they told us about how it would, that's kind of exactly what they're telling, but no one's they're not even presenting it as that. It's just entertainment. So I was wondering what could actually be then what that blue beam type of fake, and then I started thinking, is it the deep fake, the videos, because now we're hitting with all those deep fake videos, and that's probably more so. Well, and think about how they cut off all access to the internet and everything for Iran. You know what I'm saying? Right. Who knows? I don't know. Just trying to throw around thoughts around thinking about what is the actual plan. Because they do have the ability to start cutting people off from the world,
Absolutely, man. I think that's what the goal will be as far as the kind of KYC verification aspect of or know your customer protocols for essentially having a digital footprint in general, which is why we even covered that Canadian case, right, where that guy was basically brought up on charges and then given this ultimate consequence of not even being able to post online in general, let alone social media. So that was his legal consequence, was no longer being able to actively engage online in general. So if that actually were applied to a content creator, then it would destroy your livelihood. I mean, there's no way you could even individually set up your own website or anything like this, which is what I believe they will potentially bring to fruition and implement as these KYC, know your customer protocols for even having the ability to engage online, because I think that is essentially what they're implementing is with the financial digitization of every single bank account being essentially through an app on your phone, all of these various aspects is bringing in the totalitarian technocratic state, position. It's I think inevitable. right? As far as you'll have to have a government sanctioned ID to even verify yourself and no longer be anonymous, and then you can have a social media profile or something.
And then how do we, it's like, I'm not buying into that. I know a lot of other people that aren't trying to get it, but I also know people that are like, fuck it, I got, that just get it because they want to go on vacation somewhere. You know what I'm saying? I actually was watching this video today and it was interesting. The guy was posting that, with all this shit going on, they're showing us all this, Pizzagate stuff, the Iran stuff, like all this shit that's just, most people are like, yo, that's too far. Like, they're saying, like, is this like an experiment to see, like, how are we just going to keep voting? Are we just going to keep doing this? And what it would be the alternative? Like, would there be? Do you guys see any chance of any mass collection of people that enough people to say, oh, I'm not paying my taxes, or I'm not voting enough, or I'm not voting anymore to be able to? Or would they just be like, well, 100,000 people voted and this guy won, and this motherfuckers would be like, yeah, I got 100,000 votes. You know what I'm saying?
Mm-hmm.
Well, I mean, you got to think of it. If you're looking at it that way, like, if you have less people voting, that's a less powerful state. Like, say we have universal suffrage in a state and everyone's allowed to vote, and let's say you somehow are only able to get out like 0.5% of the population out to vote. That it represents a buy-in. And like, the state doesn't do anything aside from steal from people and then get people to do those things. And then these other Americans that may also not be voting may be working for the government as well. So that even further complicates the situation. So I know it seems counterintuitive. And also, I think to some degree looking for some sort of like, hey, are we going to have this thing or that thing, or some sort of rising up of, or are we going to have a tax revolution? I actually think this idea of having this like thing, it's really a death by 1,000 cuts. It's like everyone just starts, like, you're not, but for one, like, it'd be so hard to actually do like a tax revolt. But like, if people start imbibing these ideas, the idea of no longer engaging with state, no longer giving it this energy, you weaken it. And even from a tax side of things, you're not like, I would never, while I am like an agorist or whatever, and I do think you should try to keep as much as you can, I would never really advocate for anyone, like, I mean, some people just don't pay their taxes, and if that's what you want to do, go for it. But like, I would never recommend that because you're going to get fucked. But like, if you can find ways to not claim this, not claim that, or innovative tax strategies, or whatever you want to call it, like, if you say you're working for tips, you're a fucking idiot if you're claiming those, like, stuff like that. Just like every little place that you can, even something as simple as like me deciding not to work for the government, even though that would have been more cushy to some extent, a little bit more soul crushing. Just little things like that pull away from the power of the state, but not engaging with it, because it literally exists off of your energy. So you take that away and it slowly recedes. And yeah, you may not, I don't think we're ever going to get the state's gone. If anything, it's more of a slow withering away. You may have, people always talk about the smart cities of the future. If anything, I wouldn't be surprised if the future 100 years from now looks something along the lines of centralized power in certain locations that are more amenable or will concede more to state power, particularly urban centers would be the most likely in my guess. And then certain like country areas where the barbarians live, the people who actually enjoy freedom that aren't living in these like technocratic smart cities, and maybe are just living more normal sort of lives. I mean, obviously they'd probably be portrayed from the inside out as like barbarians, living like heathens, but they'd probably just be normal people living normal lives and stuff.
Right. That's why, honestly, it's every 4 years, right? They convince the general public in mass that this is the most important election of their lifetime, and they re-engage in the permanent structured establishment system and don't identify the true underlying power structure, which I think is far too complicated for just the vast majority of the general public or the average person to even really comprehend or conceptualize for themselves. And I think that's why you see these individuals who will just viciously defend these political puppets and political actors over their closest friends or relatives. And you have this kind of self-fulfilling prophecy, this kind of philosophy of the vampire in a way, but it's an intentional facade. And I think it's unethically designed to disrupt our personal lives, obviously. And I think just it destroys family values. It targets the very moral fabric of society at large. And so it's an official policy in a real way of government coercion. And this is just, it doesn't apply to the two-party delusion, right? The agenda effectively moves forward despite who's in public office. And so you have a state-sponsored a policy of degradation, right? Just socially and in the fabric of, it legitimately, we're talking about the deliberate disruption of the moral fabric of modern civilization. And I'm tired of being complicit personally. I do think a tax revolt would be amazing just philosophically, but you'll find yourself in prison, unfortunately, or paying significant penalties and fees to the state because
What about,
the state's
like,
organized
instead of,
crime.
like a tax revolt, some method or some kind of way of ensuring where our actual taxes go instead of not that's more so we obviously need stuff to be
Voluntary
whatever
system,
taxes
right?
do serve a certain purpose,
Yeah.
but when it comes to spending all that money on all types of crazy shit that most people don't agree with,
100%.
that's where there needs to be more of a check and a balance.
If this was an ethically structured system, you would have the ability to opt out of policy positions or agenda items that in an itemized fashion to where your taxpayer dollars wouldn't facilitate, let's just say the agendas that run directly in opposition to your foundational ethical or ethical foundation, right? Or principles. But anyway, that's just a pipe dream in a way, and the reason in which the system's structured as it is, right? But
and that's kind of to the point I was getting at earlier. This is part of what props it up. This idea of like, we need to have checks and balances. If we could do this, if we could do that, you sort of almost, I know people say it's doomer, but you sort of need to dispel of the idea that we're going to be able to some way get this behemoth of this coercive entity to somehow operate in the way we want. I've been ragging on immigration stuff a lot recently. People are like, oh, I wish this or that would happen. Like, yeah, but you're empowering a bureaucracy that's going to grow and it's going to suck up all your money and it's going to do everything you don't want to do and inevitably anyways. I get it's great. You don't want X thing, but like, if we go, well, what if we do Y? You're not going to end up with the result you want. It's just not. But I know, but I gotta go to bed. We're going a little bit later on this one. Sorry, God is love. We'll have to save you for the next one. But if you do stick around, we are going to the after show, so you can hang out with us there. Whatever you want to talk to, we'll shoot the bull with you there. I'll be honest, I'm probably darting pretty quick because I do need to go to bed because it's 3 hours later than Austin's commie time for me, so it's late. I gotta go to bed. But I appreciate all of you, Shy. You want to get any last words? I appreciate all you guys, generating conversation with us and hanging out.
No, it's a good show, guys. Appreciate it.
Appreciate it, dude. Don't pay any taxes. None of them. Just kidding. Pay some of them. Just enough. All right, we'll see you. All right, we'll see you, Shy. Bye-bye. All right, Austin, I want to do plugs, and I do have a fun outro for you guys. I have what we were talking about earlier. But anyways, you'll see it here in a minute. But Austin, plugs.
Yeah. So just so everyone is aware, I think whatever this is, we're gonna do on Thursday, so that should be out by Friday for sure. Other than that, I think I'm doing an interview with the guys from the Occult Rejects, right, on Friday, I believe. So that should be a fun conversation, honestly. And beyond that, I think me and Jacob are going to go back on Operation GCD with JJ at some point here in the near future. I forget which day it is now, but either way, that should be a lot of fun. And I saw this this, but you guys already know the Underclass podcast is definitely the place to find me, and if you have the means and can support me financially, the Patreon is the best place. But there's this craziest. I'll have to play it next week because it's an insane like minute clip of Ellen DeGeneres from like. It's like this model maker segment she did. It was allegedly a joke, right? And I forget, it was for like the 98 VH1 Fashion Awards or something, I think is when it was. And holy shit, dude. It's basically just as far as like the context of the Epstein files and things of that nature, the way in which she's engaging with these young children is disturbing as hell. And it's just, again, this is the way it was put. As far as the clip that I saw was that they put it in our faces every single time, and it's alluding to the demoralization or impact, in a way. But I just thought it was fascinating, and it never ends. We already know that Jesus Campos, right, the ridiculous security guard in the Vegas shooting, was entirely in a scripted interview with Ellen, and her show was basically financed by the very same individuals that owned the hotel in which Stephen Paddock allegedly shot up. But anyway, the point being, I think she was more than likely, and I'm almost certain at this point, procuring young children in a strange way. And they talk about witchcraft and things. It's very, very, again, disturbing. But anyway, that's basically the final point. We'll get into Epstein as well. I think it's more than relevant, but that's not going away anytime soon. So nothing but love from me to you guys. And I love you, Jose. You already know. I'm glad we could avert nuclear consequences in Iran. Thank God. But yeah, we'll be here next week, and I appreciate all of you. I'm gonna start doing some more independent interviews as well, and here at least in the near future. But yeah, beyond that, I'll catch you guys later. Nothing but love.
Hell yeah. For those who want to support what I'm doing, leave a like, share, subscribe, comment, leave a 5-star review on iTunes or Spotify. You can find the show on YouTube, Rumble, all the major audio podcatchers, and Twitter as well. On Twitter, that's at Tower Gang Jose. Everywhere else, it's the No Way Jose podcast. So search it up and you'll find it. If you want to support the show, the best way you can do that is with money over at patreon.com/NoWayJose2020. The lowest level is $2. It gives you access to early episodes. I try to do about 1 to 2 of those per week. Give you guys access to. I try to give about 3 to 4 behind the paywall any given time. Give you access to ad-free RSS feed. Give you access to Telegram and the pre-show, post-show, and video calls for this show right here. Our weekly call-in show, Already Dead, which is on Tuesdays at 9:30 p.m. Eastern. Now, it's like a big shout out to my sponsors, which is the highest level of my Patreon. It's a big thank you for their support. And my previous co-hosts, Entire Gang, at Learn Toad, also at Brigade D's, at ZRVSK, at _Vizil, Tim Tuttle, at John Cleeble, big fan of the show, Torn May, at Wayne Tackus, 100 Cover Kids, No Free Lunch, Jack, Mark Vestibule, and Jacob Wintergrad of the Biblical Anarchy Podcast. With that, guys, I have a fun little outro for you. I think you'll enjoy it. We'll see you. Oh, and pop in tomorrow around 11 a.m., give or take, Eastern, over on the No Way Jose podcast. I'll be doing the morning dump, my regular morning show, digging into the minutia of all the stuff going in the world, trying to have a little goofy fun at it while we're at it too. But yeah, and also have Matt Wolfson on the show tomorrow night at Behind the Paywall. But enjoy this beautiful anti-empire, anti-U.S. Israeli empire, anti-Zog propaganda. Enjoy this.
They were getting ready to attack Israel.
Strike and 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 I hear a sound of victory. I hear a sound of an abundance of rain. I hear a sound of victory. The Lord says it is done. How
can one Chandra be so leaving?
I hear the sound of victory. I hear the sound of victory. I hear the sound of victory. I hear the sound of
Israel.
Strike and 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 angels dispatched from Africa right now. Africa right now. Africa right now. From Africa right now. They're coming here. They're coming here. In the name of Jesus, from South America. They're coming here. They're coming here. They're coming here. They're coming here. From Africa. From South America. Angelic forces.
They were getting ready to attack Israel.
Strike and 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 victory, 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 victory. For angels are being released right now.